We are back in the lab. Last time we harvested our 20 liters of cells, we resuspended them, we treated them with lyase and washed them a couple of times after. So the next step after half an hour of washing is to put them back in the same old medium and let them incubate another 90 minutes. Yep, I was bored. So now that is done for. 90 minutes later, yay. We spit them down. Who would have known? And now the cell walls should be completely gone. I'm still a little worried that the cell consistency hasn't changed, but then this happened. Yep, the consistency has changed quite a bit. 5 minutes at 5k RPM was no longer enough to keep them well pelleted. So while I was getting rid of the supernatant, I lost a whole bunch of my precious cells. My precious. But that's what happens in biochemistry sometimes. So you gotta deal with it. You gotta salvage what you still have. And that's exactly what I did. I tried to clean up a little bit, but I had to move on because you can't let these cells in this state too long like that. So this is lysis buff, what I'm holding right now. And like the name says, it is the buffer you have for the actual lysis. So it's the last buffer we're actually gonna add today, which makes me happy. After all these buffers is the final one. And this one contains a lot of substances that protect the proteome, so all the proteins and molecules in the cell once you open it up. For example, there's a lot of protease inhibitors. Proteases are enzymes that pretty much are just there to cut down other proteins, and you don't want that. You want to keep all your proteins like they were in the cell. That's why you add all kinds of protective stuff and stuff that gives the right conditions for the molecules to stay the way they are. So I'm munching here in this mash. Really not looking delicious, is it? The trick is here, use as little lysis buffer as possible, because the more you use, the more you dilute your lysate in the end, and you want a high concentration because in the cell these proteins and molecules are pretty much back to back. They have no room to breathe. They are so concentrated, and if you want to mimic what a cell can do within the cell membrane in a solution, you try to basically get the same conditions, which is a really high concentration. However, you need a certain amount of lysis buffer just to get your mesh resuspended again. The cells have to be in a liquid, otherwise the lysis method is not gonna work. And now we're gonna fast forward to just that, to the lysis method. Here we go! As well resuspended as it was possible with this little amount of lysis buffer, and now we're getting out the actual equipment. So this is like a glass tube. You can see there's a little bit of reservoir on top, and I put it all the way into the ice. And what we are getting now is, well, first of all we have to fill it in there. It should just fit perfectly. That's also the trick. If you add too much lysis buffer, you might have too much for this little glass tube. And this is already the biggest one that we have for this method. And we're actually going to use this lysis method is called douncing. So this is the douncer. Well, this is the tube. I don't know what exactly is the douncer. It's pretty much like a piston. So this is the container where you put it in, and then once I filled it all in, we are gonna get the actual douncer or the piston, and then we're gonna push through. You're gonna see it here in a second. But first of all, since I already lost a couple of cells in the while I was getting rid of the supernatant, I'm trying to salvage as much as possible, because the more cells you have, the longer my extract will last, and that means that I won't have to do this whole procedure again anytime soon. I have to do it basically again once I used up all the extract that I'm getting done here. Ah, come on, Fabe, that's good enough. No one cares about the last little bit of cells. Well, I apparently do. Alright, but that should be good enough now. Right? Possibly. Nope, still not quite convinced. Once again, it's all a balancing act between the amount of lysis buffer you add to that. The more you add, the less sticks to the cup eventually. But as I said, the higher concentration is more important than the amount that you get out at the end. So this is the douncer, the tight one. You can see the little blob of glass at the bottom, and this is constructed so it exactly fits in there, and there's literally almost no place between the douncer and the wall of the glass tube. As you can see, I have to apply quite a bit of force to press together the cell suspension and force them between the douncer and the glass wall. And this area is so small that it basically rips the cells apart. And once is of course not enough. I have to repeat this whole thing several times. Makes a fun little sound, as you can hear. Delicious, isn't it? So I think, what was it, like 20 or 25 strokes I had to do, and sooner or later it's really exhausting to do this stuff over and over again. Especially have to be really careful, because if you pull too hard, all of a sudden you have the thing in your face. And over again. So basically you force the cells between the douncer and the glass wall, and hence the forces that apply there rip the cells apart that are already weakened. Remember, we did all this preparation before to weaken the cell wall and the cell membrane, and now we're gonna shred it to pieces. So we only have the innards of the cell left. Yep, that replaces pretty much any workout. Alright, so that was the last stroke, and now I can finally get this thing out of there. There we go. That's the sound that it makes. I can do it myself. I don't need this machine to make the sound. Alright, getting some paper down so we don't make a mess. And once again, we're gonna lose a little bit. Oh man, I was really exhausted, wasn't I? There we go. That's it. And now, any guesses what we do next? Any? Yep, those are new cups, smaller ones this time, the SS34. And we're gonna fill it in there and we're gonna spin it down once again. But this time, very important difference. Oh, look at this consistency. Like pudding. Awesome. The difference this time is what we're gonna spin down. We're gonna spin at a very higher speed, higher G-forces. And oh man, I was a little upset, I think, that it didn't fit into one. So I gotta use the second one as well, and I gotta balance them out again, which is a little bit annoying. But what we're doing here is we're gonna spin down all the cell waste. All the waste that is left of the membranes and the cell wall. And we're actually gonna discard the pellet now. The whole time, we actually use the pellet again, discarded the supernatant, and resuspended in something else. And this time is the first time we're gonna discard the pellet and we're gonna use the supernatant, because that's the liquid that was in the cell. That's the liquid where everything we want is in. All the ribosomes, all the initiation factors, the elongation factors, everything you need to translate mRNA into proteins. Well, at least for those of you who know what that means. I'm not going to go too much into detail. But yeah, trying to balance it out. Oh, well, looks good enough, doesn't it? Let's see if my intuition serves me well. And I'm of course gonna put it on the scale. Because as you know, centrifuges always have to be very balanced. Here we go, let's see. First try. Doesn't look like it. Nope. Gotta fill something over. But yeah, as you can see, we started with 20 liters of culture And now, what is this? Maybe 50 milliliters that we got left of the whole thing? And it's gonna get even less because this is only the first run in the centrifuge. Oh, we're gonna only get rid of the crude cell waste in this run at 15,000 RPM. And after that we're gonna have an even faster run, but this is not gonna go into the normal big centrifuge anymore, but actually into the ultracentrifuge. And I don't think I was able to put it on camera, but the difference between an ultracentrifuge and the centrifuge is that the ultracentrifuge actually operates under vacuum. So it has less drag when you rotate something really fast and there's air around, there's always a little bit of drag. So you actually, to spin stuff faster, you go into the vacuum, and that makes it even more efficient. However, I, as a master student, I'm not allowed to use the ultracentrifuges on my own. So I had someone to supervise me there. It's pretty ridiculous because it's not that hard to use, and once someone explained it to you, you can pretty much do it anytime. But then again, they are really expensive. It's more expensive than these centrifuges, so it's probably for the better. Anyways, that's a really small rotor, as you can see, for the smaller cups, compared to what we had earlier at least. And 15 minutes at 15,000, I believe, is the setting. Well, I guess one hand is really not enough for this kind of action, is it? Alright, 15 minutes later, we are done. That's how it looks. I'm not quite pleased with it because the pellet is super big. And the bigger the pellet, oh, that is, by the way, the ultracentrifuge tube. It's a lot more robust. A lot more, it's hardened plastic compared to the other one, which is kind of soft plastic. We're gonna fill it over. As you can see, there's a lot of cell waste that stayed there. And I'm a little bit worried. This cell pellet is so big that I actually think it's not only cell waste, but still unlysed cells in there. So basically I lost a whole lot more of yield by having a lot of cells that weren't completely lysed in the downcer. That could have had several reasons. One, there wasn't enough lysis buffer in there. The stuff was too viscous and I wasn't really able to crush it. Also, I could have not have enough strokes, which I don't think. I think I did even more than was said in the protocol. So I don't think that was it. There we go. There's the other one. Took me a while to get it out there, apparently. So I'm gonna fill it in the same one so I don't have to waste another one. But as you can see, it's even less liquid now. What is this? Maybe 20 milliliters left? Such a big pellet there. And I can tell you, it is a pain to clean these tubes. To get this thick of a pellet out of there, it's a mess. It's really not a nice procedure. Anyways, the next step is to put these new tubes now in the ultracentrifuge and spin them for 30 minutes at 37,000 RPM, if I'm not mistaken. And that is the ultracentrifuge now. As you can see, that's the vacuum chamber, and that's where the rotor goes later. And this is a really solid steel. No, I don't think it's steel. It's maybe aluminum. I don't quite know. Anyways, before we go into the ultracentrifuge, of course, we have to balance out our tubes again. This time, for the ultracentrifuge, which is a lot more sensitive because we are rotating a lot higher speeds, the normal scale or the old school scale is not good enough anymore. We're actually gonna go on the actual scale. And those are the rotors, kept in the cooling room to keep it nice and cool all the time. And yeah, as you can see, they are massive. That's really metal, complete metal, nothing hollow, complete solid metal, because it has to be really stable. And we're gonna put these guys in there and close it back up again. And then we have to insert the rotor. That's also the difference. You have to insert the rotor every single time. You have to insert the tubes before you put the rotor into the centrifuge, compared to the other centrifuges where you just put the cups in whenever you want. Alright, it's almost done, the run. So when the RPM goes below 3000, you can release the vacuum, which is what I'm doing right now. All the air gets sucked back in, and then we can finally open it up again and get the rotor out of there. For that, of course, I need both of my hands, since this is a solid metal rotor, as you just saw. Getting the thing out, opening it up again, and finally getting out our final lysate, the stuff we actually want. However, as you will see in a second here, the stuff is not as nice looking as you would expect, because it is quite a gradient. There's not a real palette anymore. At this point, it's more like a gradient of heavier stuff at the bottom, as you can see. This opaque stuff. Then we have like a little hazy area in the middle, and on the top is actually a fat layer. And what we want is the stuff exactly in the middle. So we don't want the opaque stuff, we don't want the fat layer, we want a clear fraction in the center. So I'm gonna have a little pipette there. I'm gonna try and get out just the liquid in the center. And it is kind of hard to do, especially since the boundaries are not really solid or not really visible. They are kind of like a gradient into each other. So you gotta make a judgment call here, how much you're actually gonna take out of there before you start pulling out stuff that you don't want in there. And that is kind of a tedious work. After that is only one more step, and that is getting all that stuff through these columns. Those are PD10 columns, and that means that that is basically a matrix. That white stuff you see in there is a matrix, and what it does, it filters out small molecules. So it's basically a material that has a lot of small pores, and all kinds of small molecules like tRNA and small proteins and salt molecules get trapped in these pores of the material, while the bigger the macromolecules, they can pretty much pass through without getting stuck on them. So right now, before you can use these columns, you have to equilibrate them with the same buffer that you used for your lysate. Otherwise, you might expose your lysate to conditions that are not favorable for the proteins that are in it. So you gotta make sure that the salt concentrations and everything you need is also in the pillars, in the columns, not only in the lysis buffer. So that takes a while until they are all equilibrated. Man, I have a hard time pronouncing that word. 15 minutes at least, because you have to have several milliliters go through there. And then you can finally put your lysate on there. But man, this is probably one of the most annoying things you have to do. However, the time-lapse look kind of nice. Finally, there's our lysate. As you can see, not much left, maybe 6 milliliters, about that. And now it's finally time to put it on the columns. Took long enough, didn't it? The thing is, if we put it on there, you can see I didn't change it. I'm still collecting all the stuff that flows through in the same falcon tubes, because it takes a while until the lysate goes all the way through the column, of course. And people before me have measured how long it takes. So I'm really thankful to those people who tested this out, because now I know, okay, I don't know the exact numbers, but I only have to give my 3 milliliters of lysate on there, let it run through. Then I'm gonna add, I think it was 0.75 milliliters more buffer to fill up to the column. And then I have to add exactly, I think again, like 3 milliliters. I don't have the numbers in my head. I don't know by heart. And this is exactly the amount that you collect after that. So pretty much people tried out how long you have to wait and how much liquid you have to put on top of your lysate. So you get exactly your lysate out of there without diluting it with any of the other waste that you let run through this pillar. There we go. Changed it to flow through. Now I add some more buffer, which will basically push out the lysate on the bottom. And then we have our final product, our nice cell extract without the small molecules and without all the cell waste. Exactly what we need. And I can tell you guys, a lot of work went into this. And fun fact, spoiler alert, everything I did on this day in this video, I never used it. Because it didn't work for me. I needed to make the same thing all over again with special cells, which are actually lacking a certain protein. So it worked for my specific mRNA that I needed to translate. So, yep, I made this whole procedure again. Anyways, I'm at least glad I got a nice video out of that. And we finally got our extract. I think at the end it was left, what was left? Like maybe 4 or 5 milliliters. And of course you cannot just have it stand around. What you do is you go and get some liquid nitrogen from the tank. Oh yeah, liquid nitrogen. Who doesn't love it, huh? Oh, it's always fun to work with that. Even a little highlight in the day. Alright, so I filled up some smaller amounts in extra epis, so I can thaw them without having to thaw the whole extract, because the thing is, the more often you thaw your lysate, the less likely it is that it's still gonna work, because all the proteins are slowly gonna lose their function when they are heated up again. But yeah, shock freezing everything at, what is it, minus 290 degrees Celsius, about that. I'm not entirely sure. But it's awesome. Love it. And then the big rest, couple of milliliters in there. And you know, when you gotta do this, when you got to freeze your stuff away, you know you're done for the day. And it's just all over a good feeling to get this stuff done. You put it in the minus 80 degree storage, and then you enjoy the sunset on your way home. So I hope you guys enjoyed this day. It was pretty exhausting for me, but if you did enjoy it, leave it a like. I would really appreciate that. And I'll see you next time. But guys, today I want to talk to you guys about anime. I love it. I don't know how you feel about it, but I'm deeply in love with this form of art.